The complete and definitive work of art is created beyond one's individuality. The universal transcends such a level. Mere spontaneity has never created a work of art which possesses a lasting cultural value. The method leading to universal form is based upon calculations of measure and number. Art and life are no longer separate domains. The word art no longer has anything to say to us. In place of that, we insist upon the construction of our surroundings according to creative laws deriving from a fixed principle. These are two quotes brought together that were professed by Theo van Doesburg, the founder and leader of de Stijl, a 1900s Dutch art movement that favored strict framework, heavily utilizing horizontal and vertical lines in favor of more dynamic, imbalanced, and colorized framework that allowed for better use of artistic expression. It's in these two quotes where he acknowledges the magnitude of art while also expressing how art and artists has become inseparable due to the societal structure around art itself. But what is art truly? I think we can all agree that art, in whichever way you choose to define or characterize it as, represents nothing more than the truest expression an artist can present. To many people, art is music, art is cinema, art is culinary, skill, sport, oration, nature. Aura is what the kids would want me to say, but I refuse to include that one. Beauty, acting, expression, thought, movements, comedy, photography, art itself. Art is art, and art is such a beautiful thing. Until the artist absolutely ruins it.
Jay-Z has become the first billionaire rapper.
People from Brooklyn were forced to move from their homes so expensive apartments could be put there.
It's galvanised the British nation to inspire it to stand up against Hitler.
As the precipitator of mass killing.
Absolutely nobody! The double champ does what the
Conor McGregor found guilty after being accused of sexual assault by
been one of the biggest movie stars in the world for 25 years.
I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn.
The worldwide symbol of rebellion and revolutionary
He became
struggle.
a terrorist seeking to violently overthrow the region's
Honestly,
government.
How can we really judge the artist when their art is so brilliant?
Bark like a dog, come on!
Compensation for what your platform has done?
You've always transphobia.
Can we truly separate art from the artist? An age-old first world crisis that has plagued humanity for centuries before and decades to come. But what does this really mean? In my eyes, separating art from the artist has always meant setting a clear line between the work, or in this case, art, that is produced by a given person or subject, and distinguishing it as just that, art. Let's, for the sake of the idea, say that I, Bradley, produce the most chemically balanced, affordable, non-intrusive, and sustainable vaccination that with just one shot would cure all of life's diseases. I would be idolized. I would be celebrated as one of science and medicine's greatest minds. I would be credited as a genius, indoctrinated in the annals of human history, remembered for as long as humanity has a life to breathe on this earth. I would be universally loved. Until you found out that I pour milk in before my cereal. I mean, I'm sure that would cause some uproar as well, but in all seriousness, what if I had done this, but at the same time was a souped up version of Uncle Ruckus? I'm talking racist to the very fiber of my being. So much so that I would have considered myself to be a sympathizer of racial atrocities, of human action in our recorded history. Becomes pretty hard to support my work now, huh? And while this is an over-the-top extremity that I'm presenting here, it generalizes the difficulty that us as an audience are pitted with when being confronted with the irrehensible actions of our artists. And with the age that we are living in, one where forgetting is more of a choice rather than something of happenstance, more than ever has this come into question as to where the line gets drawn. Today, we are fortunate enough to receive the insight to understand the framework and actions that it takes to create such masterful works. But with this insight comes the things that we are not meant to hear or to see that eventually begin to come into the public eye, leading us down a road where we begin to question whether you could support the art that is being produced.
Say, everything has to be symmetrical. If it's not gonna be symmetrical, it's not going in the movie.
I'm gonna fucking bash your fucking head against the wall with a brick if you don't shut the up.
Sorry, I need to do a huge favor. Can you please take your name off your phone? My wife looked at my phone and maybe calling you. If you can, please take your name off that and just have it as a number. There's no, just have it as your phone number. Okay, you gotta do this for me.
So with that in mind, and with the ever-growing list of questionable artists, I thought I'd take a stab at finding an answer, or at least some kind of middle ground that will help us, or whoever finds this video, to figure out whether separating art from the artist is actually possible. So to make this as easy as possible without going off into the deep end, I'm going to cover both sides. So I'm going to break this up into arguments, let's say pro-separatist for advocating for the separation of the two, and then anti-separatist for those who wish to keep the two synonymous. I feel like I'm a fucking 1700s economist. Anti-federalist, pro-federalist. I'm a neutral party in the matter until I cover all my bases, but for this first portion of the video, I'll be speaking from a pro-separatist standpoint. This does not mean that I am in support or that I'm against, but I will outline the arguments from both sides with commonly spoken sentiments and rebuttals on the matter. Now, with that said, let's see why we should first separate the art from the artist.
I am the #1 most impactful artist of our generation. I am Shakespeare in the flesh. Walt Disney, Nike, Google.
When art is created and done so in a way that transcends the very platform it's presented on, does it really matter where art is derived? The artist who created, sure, has flaws just like the rest of us, but at the end of the day, the art they created is still exceptional beyond what the artist has done aside from it. I think this is most apparent in pop culture with things that could be most appreciated without ever knowing the artist behind it, with examples such as music, art, and acting being predisposed to society each and every day. I can hum out hundreds of songs that I consistently hear on the radio, recall paintings I've been shown during my education, and hell, I've watched enough movies in my lifetime to have absolutely no worldly clue who sings the song, who painted the painting, or the actor's name who acted out the role. I mean, how many of you heard this song? Hey now, you're an all-star. Or have seen this painting, or even know the name of this actor? Go ahead, I'll wait. If you said
All-Star by Smash Mouth, Edvard Munch, and Andy Serkis,
then you might actually need to audition for Jeopardy. But for the 99% of people who didn't even get one correct, it proves the argument exactly. We are able to appreciate art produced without ever truly knowing where the art is derived. So when faced with this reality, it makes you begin to question everything ever created in front of you. I guarantee you that most of the infrastructure or clothing around you is made from a completely different country. I live in the US, so it might be different for most of you guys, but I know that the majority of things in my household. Put this theory to the test. Let's take this for example. Oh, what does that say? Made in India. Okay, how about my guitar? This says made in, it says made in Mexico. Let's do 2 more, right? I'm trying to keep my camera down because my house is not looking clean right now. Let's do this candle. Damn, focus, focus, focus. Ah, made in Vietnam. Okay, let's go into the room, keep my camera down because it's looking messy as hell. Let's do some clothes. How about that? Let's do this Juice WRLD tee. Let's see. Where is he made from? Made in Honduras. So yeah. But have you ever thought about the process of how these products get manufactured before being brought here? Most likely not. Nike is easily one of the most successful sports apparel brands that this world has ever seen. The company alone today is worth like $100 billion or something. At the same time, sponsoring and endorsing some of the most influential and successful athletes of all time. With their iconic shoe collection, dry fit material, and lineage of athletic excellence, I, like many other young adults who enjoy sports or actively participate in fitness, has spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on merchandise over the course of my lifetime. But did I stop wearing Nike when I found out that they have one of the most egregious child labor practices of any company? Nope. Nike sweatshops, as they call them, have long had a history of using child labor to keep up with the demand while simultaneously maximizing profits for nothing more than good old corporate greed. They do make some fire kicks though. My point in the matter is that every day we have pieces of art on or surrounding us that we forget to think of how that art came to be, with some of the most large-scale brand companies outsourcing its labor to reduce labor expenses, being accomplished through forced child labor or people working for meager wages. Hell, even the official United States Department of Labor has a website dedicated to listing off products or goods that utilize forced or child labor in its production. Items that are used daily here in the US: artificial flowers from China, baked goods from DR, bananas from South American nations, even fucking acai berries from Brazil. I cannot even begin to tell you how many acai spots there are in my area alone. I mean, holy shit. Regardless of what we're eating, the content we are consuming, and the items we surround ourselves with, chances are one of the pieces of art were created from an artist in which is severely flawed. So now, with that information in hand, are you going to handcraft your house furniture, sew your own clothing, grow your own food, and God forbid I say do research on any manufacturer of clothing before you place your next Temu/Shein order? If you said yes to any of these questions, you're a motherfucking liar. But the answer is honestly no. Would you stop oohing over Chanel products if I told you that its founder, Coco Chanel, is an anti-Semitic Nazi spy? No. If I told you that Thomas Edison was a corrupt businessman known for ripping off others' ideas while recording the live electrocution of an elephant, would you stop using the light bulb? Probably not. If I told you that the US Treasury Department decided to put the 7th president of the United States, Andrew Jackson, on a $20 bill, who while admirably handling the nullification crisis was known to be an overt racist, as an active slave owner who waged warfare on the same Native Americans who helped him win battle in one of the most twisted acts of this country, the Trail of Tears, would you refrain from using $20 bills to spite the government? We tried that already. And how did that go? I thought so. Casualties of war, unfortunately. Certain things we have in life are just too time consuming to have to do it ourselves, or simply too counterproductive to our daily lives, and I completely understand that. But how about when the flaws are a bit more outstanding, when the artist is put on blast for the whole world to see? Look no further than these three figures: John Lennon, Mother Teresa, and Christian Bale. John Lennon was one of the lead vocalists for the Beatles, and for anyone that knows anything about the Beatles, is that their popularity at their peak was simply unmatched.
We came here at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 to see them, and all they do is push you farther and farther away, and then they don't even let you stay. Damn, you're so sick.
But this is the
That's my little girl, ladies and gentlemen. Is there a doctor in the house here? I want you to tell me.
Others do not. Other ladies fainted, but authorities feel that some were playing possum.
The impact they had on pop culture socially and politically is unmatched, and I doubt we will ever see the same impact from another collective again. After Lennon split from the group, his solo career and the music he released together with his wife was still wildly successful, with his assassination only adding to his legend, as many regard him as one of the greatest musicians of all time. I mean, the man died 45 years ago and still boasts 11 billion monthly listeners on Spotify. For as beloved and highly regarded as Lennon is today, the man did make a lot of mistakes in the past. The discourse over Lenin in the last few decades or so has shed light on some of his more unpleasantries, numerous instances of cheating on his first wife, failing to be a competent father to his first child, and demonstrating multiple instances of severe verbal and physical abuse towards women, especially his first wife. However, once Lenin grew to be older, remarried, and became better in touch with himself, he acknowledged the errors in his ways and actively made changes for the better before his demise. And for that leaves room for the public to define him however they like. But the fact of the matter is that he had made mistakes, very severe mistakes, when he was younger, and over time was able to rehabilitate himself in private and in the public eye to somewhat recover his image half a century later. And as other artists who come and go who have made similar mistakes or poor decisions to work towards a life of bettering themselves and repenting for their actions, who's to say we still can't appreciate their art? Mother Teresa is one of the most well-known saints of the Catholic Church, who founded the Missionaries of Charity that aim to help the poor and destitute people of India. Teresa has long been a symbol of faith and charity to help the misfortunate and those in need. I mean, the lady won a damn Nobel Peace Prize, for crying out loud. But more recently, and you would see this as a trend building with how many people like to dig up old shit on beloved people, Teresa has started being regarded as more of a sinner than a saint on certain corners of the internet, with many people tarnishing her image by accusing her of mismanagement of funds she received from donations, holding her responsible for the poor conditions and medical care provided in her facilities, and a whole host of other shit that would stretch this video for far longer than I'm willing to edit. Christian Bale is one of the most intense and devoted actors I've ever seen. His performances he's delivered on The Fighter, The Masochist, that word, or the edgelord fan favorite American Psycho are easily some of the best acting ever conducted on any film you could show me. But the guy is kind of a douche at times about his roles.
Kick your fucking ass! I want you off the fucking set, you prick! No, don't just be sorry. Think for one fucking second. The fuck are you doing? Are you professional or not? Yes, I am. Do I fucking walk around and rip down? No, shut the fuck up, Bruce. Do I want? No! No! Don't shut me up. Am I gonna walk around and rip your fucking lights down in the middle of a scene? Then why the fuck are you walking right through? Like this in the background. What the fuck is it with you? What don't you fucking understand?
Regardless of the actions of these three individuals, they undeniably produced or exercised great works of art that can all be appreciated today. Lenin has composed some of the most popular songs ever written. Teresa's devotion to her faith and thought process has led to the Missionaries of Charity expanding to 130 countries worldwide. Bale's mesmerizing performances have given inspiration to other famous actors and have set the standards for what great acting can be. All of them flawed, all of them artists in their own right, all of their art still appreciated years after the fact, despite their imperfections or what some may deem as cancelable, whatever the fuck that means. I could go on listing a host of beloved and idolized figures whose morals and characters have come into question, which in turn have led people to undermine their very achievements or try to belittle the impact they've had. But the truth is simply, everybody is not perfect. Surprise, surprise, people are flawed, and oh my gosh, people actually make mistakes. Wow. But is it up to us to be judge, jury, and executioner in an age where oh my god damn nigga, misinformation, out of context quotes, and half-truths floods our feeds and timelines? Is it on us to determine who gets blackballed and who gets a pass? Is it truly fair for us to diminish a work of art because the person behind it lacks social cues or awareness? Does it really make the art any less great? Caravaggio was a magnificent painter who casually killed people on the side, but does this make his paintings any less great than it was before? This musical piece simply a classic. But the guy Beethoven is so synonymous with musical composition that despite him driving his nephew to the point of nearly offing himself, is still taught in musical classrooms all around the world. Drewski. Oh, that's too fresh. Damn. I'll probably wait for that one to cool down a bit. The list goes on, and I really don't want to ruin anyone's childhood today. I forgot to mention that Steve Jobs also didn't acknowledge his daughter. But how about when the artist goes too far? That time when you admire the art being produced but are put off once you learn the story behind the artist. Well, let's segue into the viewpoints in what I call the anti-separatist.
The thing about the red hat that drove me to a point of exhaustion, which was misdiagnosed by a, I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, and what hospital, and what media went to. We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
Art and the artist are synonymous. How is it possible to separate the two? How can I go out of my way to support an artist's art when that artist is morally bankrupt? If I'm in the know of an artist whose values are polar opposites of mine, it would be wrong for me to support their art. Essentially, I'm justifying their actions through my unwavering support. These are generally the wondering thoughts that go through the heads of those unwilling to separate the two when facing this battle. And honestly, they're not even wrong. Cancel culture, for as overbearingly toxic as it has become, in a select few instances has allowed for us as a society to hold artists more accountable for the actions that they choose to downplay. Over the last decade, we have seen hundreds of athletes, actors, Hollywood execs, and other media figures finally be brought to justice for their blatant disregard of anyone other than themselves and removing this pedestal from those who regard themselves as higher than thou. I can't think of any more prominent examples of this than Kanye West! For me, Kanye is easily top 5 favorite artists of my lifetime, and the number of bangers, I mean bangers, that this man has dropped over the last 2 decades is nothing short of impressive. I'm talking College Dropout, Graduation, Yeezus, My Beautiful Dark Twisted. You get it. I've tried to look past his comments and his actions of recent. So I know you guys probably expected a collage or like a montage of questionable, controversial, and very, very, very bad stuff that Kanye West has said or done in the past like couple years. But while I was putting together this compilation, I realized that, hey, a lot of this stuff is either very, very offensive or more than likely to get my channel shadow banned or completely eliminate the possibility of ever getting monetized on this platform. So, you know, I'm just going to put up this really beautiful, fun-loving picture of Kanye West. And if you'd like to know what Kanye has said or have done, literally just type in Kanye West controversy in Google and a whole 1,000 list, million, whatever, you know, you'll get a whole bunch of hits of stuff that this man has said or done in like the past year. So with that said, I'm just gonna leave that here. Please like, subscribe. Nah, I'm just kidding. But if you do like the video up to this point, leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. And we are just gonna slowly back away like this portion of the video never happened. So let's just fast forward to my viewpoint on Kanye and the anti-separatist part of the video. Yeah. Okay. To the most recent utterly foul disrespect of Virgil Abloh, rest in peace, and the constant Nazi rhetoric. There's only so much I can take, Kanye. There's only so much I can take. To the point now where it has just become nearly impossible to separate the music from Ye.
Okay, you can get a good angle if I'm sitting here?
Where's that sit? Right here?
Wherever you want. You can sit right here. Yeah.
I got a white leather one in fall.
So you got this made specifically?
Absolutely. Hold on. Can we move that to the side?
Let me get this out of the way.
Yeah, it's perfect. So you take that away. So we just had like this, frame it right here.
Okay. So move this or keep it?
Yeah.
I cannot watch House of Cards anymore, as every time I see this man come across my screen, while the acting is...
And you have all enjoyed it, been party to it, and benefited by it.
Chef's kiss. The person behind Francis Underwood is sick in the fucking head, to the point where I can't even rewatch the series knowing what I know now. Nickelodeon, like many of my 90s and 2000s babies, is such a hit of euphoric nostalgia that reminiscing on the times when TV was actually good, not this garbage y'all got playing now.
Side of Kirk fries and a Kirk shake.
All they do right now is eat, sleep, and sometimes like to bounce on a pillow.
Ah, Gracie talk! I'm so excited for the Juneteenth parade.
All right, I have to stop it right there. I just cannot for the life of me understand why we're including this in a children's show. Like, yes, I'm all for educating the youth and teaching society and schools about like real world events, and it's positive to see that Juneteenth is something that has gained recognition in like the last decade or whatever the case is, and you know, people choose to celebrate it, and I believe now it's actually a national holiday. But this is a kids show. This clip that I took this video from is from YouTube Kids. Like, why are we including this in a television show? It just feels like it's a political movement to drive inclusion and equity in a sense where it really isn't needed. Like, you could have achieved the same comedic value without having to acknowledge Juneteenth in a fucking kids show. Keep in mind, this is a kids show for YouTube Kids. This is why I can't enjoy TV anymore.
I've been so focused on my mixtape that my fans are suffering from not seeing me doing my thing.
All right. I have to stop one more time. I'm so sorry, but I just can't with this show. Like, I'm an African American myself, and watching this show irritates the living hell out of me. Like, I'm all for dreams and pushing you to do what you want to do, but does every black little boy have to be a rapper, have to be a dancer? Like, I don't know, it just reminds me of that one Boondocks scene where it's like, dance, nigga, dance.
Hard conversation with the nigga. The nigga will lie. The nigga will make excuses. He will use words he don't really know. If he gets really desperate, he may start to rap or dance.
Does every black boy have to be a rapper, have to be a dancer, have to be performing? Like, yeah, entertain a white man, dance with a white man. I know that's not like the intention, and upon deep dive of this kid, I actually see that he makes music. Like, he had made music, and if I'm not mistaken, this is a Tyler Perry production. So more and more are we just feeding into the black stereotypes, the rapper, dancer, the angry black woman, the old fat grandma stereotypes, and it's very sad to see that our own people continue to feed into the narratives that essentially bring us down to a level where we're so much greater than. With shows like iCarly, Zoe 101, Drake and Josh being the brainchild of Dan Schneider, who has been accused of many grotesque acts, and it begins to turn you off of the idea of watching the show when you come across certain scenes, knowing what we know now.
In. Out. Duh.
Okay, on 3, I'm gonna...
Just do it!
All right. There we go.
Juice from a potato.
John Jones was one of my idols growing up. When I had my Xbox 360, I would play UFC Undisputed 2010. It's still the best UFC game that has come out in the last like 20 years, because the last like UFCs that EA Sports has released are absolutely terrible. I would always choose between him and Rampage Jackson, but even for me, Rampage was a little too crazy. So I gravitated towards Jones a little bit more. His respect for other fighters, his exciting fight style, and God-centric approach to life really captivated me growing up. My very first Instagram bio that I created featured Jones's Philippians 4:13 Bible verse that he has tattooed across his chest. But after instance 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 of John Jones failing to live up to the role model pedestal I had set for him as a child, it has become debated amongst many UFC fans if Jones could really be regarded as the GOAT, as he has 180'd completely from hero to villain in front of our very eyes. What I'm getting at here is that it becomes uncomfortable for me to stand behind a piece of art knowing that I can't even stand the artist. These historical paintings are actually really, really nice. Until you find out who painted them, now I want absolutely nothing to do with these paintings, and the whole time they're actually extremely mid. I am a huge Bob Kane fan, as I adore the Batman series and corresponding graphics of the Batman comics. I became a huge Bob Kane hater when I found out that he actually stole the idea from his longtime friend, who died in obscurity without receiving any credit, royalties, or as much of a lick of a mention of his name up until like 10 years ago. Batman has been around for almost a century, and literally in 2015 is when we found out who the fuck this guy is. Anytime we make something look really, really good, we often say it's like Picasso painted it himself. I know I've said it, but once I learned how that man used to think about women, yeah, that left my lexicon very quickly. Art and artists are inseparable, and for me to denounce the actions of the artist because their art they produce is better than the average person will only continue to enable and normalize the actions that are being called into question. Art, no matter how good or how bad, should be treated as a direct reflection of the artist. The more their art is praised, the more their nature is downplayed, which almost encourages the behaviors to continue, as there remains no recourse or repercussions for their actions. Take the NFL, for example, who for years have had a pretty gnarly reputation for giving its athletes a slap on the wrist for numerous escapades that they would get into off the field. And for years before smartphones had the ability to catch niggas in 4K, the general consensus among the public was that athletes basically had a monopoly get out of jail free card. All they had to do was plead innocence, hire a fancy expensive lawyer, and be hit with the smallest fines that would be the equivalent of the NFL sucking pennies out of the cushions in between their seats of their Ferrari. All of that would really change when this man, pro running back Ray Rice, gave a Falcon to his wife in 4K. And for this, the NFL decided, you know what? All of the news is talking about this. Everyone is talking about this. We need to punish Ray Rice. We need to make an example out of him. So you know what they did? They suspended him for 2 games and fined him a 3rd game check. God bless Roger Goodell. But once the video came out of his wife being sent to the shadow realm and the NFL being reamed publicly for the embarrassment of the suspension, common sense finally kicked in and he was suspended indefinitely before being released. And it was this move from the NFL that made it an example out of Rice that would set the precedent for how future acts of this magnitude would be handled, leading to several players being promoted to customer and in search of a new livelihood after accountability came knocking. And one more example that I want to mention, but almost left off because it has to do with politics. In 2018, I had the economical and societal awareness of a brain-rotted adolescent. Whenever it came to supporting political candidates, I usually just went for, honestly, whoever's black or Democrat. I can't lie to y'all. So in 2018, once the race was up for governor of my state in Florida, I became an avid supporter of Andrew Gillum. Here's a guy who was born and raised here in Florida, attended an HBCU, and became the youngest person ever elected to Tallahassee City Commission at just 23 years old. I was sold. And after telling all my friends who didn't know shit about politics and jumping for joy when watching one of his speeches on screen, I was completely on board with the Andrew Gillum train. The guy spoke really well. He was funny, he was cultured, and he seemed adamant on helping out the middle class of Florida. But if I'm talking about him here, then probably know where this is going. The race between current Governor DeSantis and Gillum became one of the closest gubernatorial races in American history, with DeSantis edging him out by a measly 0.4%, which was roughly about 34,000 votes. I was crushed. I felt defeated. We were robbed again, is what I was thinking. And then this story came out.
A call came in about a suspected drug overdose. Andrew Gillum, husband, father, and rising star in the Democratic Party, the first black nominee of a major party when he ran for Florida governor, was one of 3 men found inside that hotel room. Police say Aldo Mejias came back to the room where he found Gillum and Travis Dyson under the influence of an unknown substance. Gillum, who'd reportedly been found vomiting in the bathroom, was later allowed to leave the hotel to go home. Police also released these photos showing the mess left behind: stained pillowcases and sheets, pills and bottles of pills spilled in various places. Police also removed what they suspected to be 3 small bags of crystal meth.
Did I forget to mention that he was married and has children? The last time I heard of him, he was being indicted by the FBI. So once again, with all that I've covered, how can we allow ourselves to separate art from the artist, as doing so only escalates the nefarious actions of the artist at hand? No art shall overshadow its artist. No art shall be separated. So, after doing my research on a number of subjects I covered while gaining an understanding of the most logical and practical takes from the people of the internet, it has dawned on me that for this matter, whether or not we could separate the art from the artist, there is only one correct answer. And that answer is both sides are correct. I know. Not the answer you're looking for. But honestly, can you really say there is one? Seeing as I am just one person, the ideals or values that I have will clearly differentiate from others. Some people are very sympathetic and forgiving of poor judgment and the actions of others, and are willing to forgive the person to hopefully learn from their errors. Some people are extremely sympathetic, almost too sympathetic, and forgiving of the poor judgment and actions of others. Others just want everyone to be endlessly publicly ridiculed and deplatformed while deriving joy from watching the downfalls of once praised people. But whatever side of the coin you may fall on, even if you're somewhere in the middle, it really comes back to the audience that receives the art. Art means different things to different people. Therefore, some are willing to excuse certain behaviors in favor of it. And that's what makes art so beautiful. How I could see one thing and someone could see something completely different. It's the varying perspectives that have come together to make art what it is. So next time you consume a work of art, maybe even think of this video as such. Ask yourself whether or not you need to understand the artist that it came from. And regardless of what you discover, ask yourself, can I truly separate art from the artist?